Hi, this is Darren DeBarry, writer, director, and lead actor in this short film, Stealing. This was shot in a 6-week period in Monmouth and Ocean County. This opening scene was shot actually at a place called Margot's, which is a wonderful restaurant. I just thought it was kind of cool. And when you make these short films, sometimes you just happen to be in a location, you're inspired, you get a shot of you drinking, walking down the hallway, there's my car, and there is the opening title. This main character is a thief, and he was a lot of fun to play, actually. It was kind of interesting to get into his mindset, and that's what this film is basically about. He also breaks the fourth wall a lot and narrates his life. This here, that was my old house right there. This was shot in Lake Riviera. But this is really a psychological study of his life. This was shot at Alair State Park. This little flashback to the thief and his wife. That is my real-life wife, Beth, and Alair State Park is actually one of our favorite places to go. So it was nice to shoot there once again. This little floor shot was taken at Freehold Raceway where I work, and this is me driving through Farmingdale, narrating, talking about my father, who was also a thief in this film, and we're going to have just a quick flashback to him after this narration, which was also shot at Freehold Racetrack. A lot of closed shots, so you're not exactly sure where these scenes are. And that's kind of the idea, because this is really a psychological study into this guy's mind more than anything else. And you're not sure until, I think, the very end, if you've been paying attention, whether any of this was real or not. Well, actually, when it's over, I think you have to decide what was real or not. This was shot in my old backyard, and this is inside the house. Old house in Lake Riviera in Brick, New Jersey. And it's great because sometimes you walk around a house or you're in a location, you think, wait a minute, the way I can cut this in, maybe I can use something that's close to me, so I don't have to, ask somebody to use their house. And this whole basement sequence that took place at the beginning, it was around the time when we were actually getting ready to move. I actually thought it fit exactly what we needed. It was a basement, that's all it had to be. And the thief is breaking into the basement. He knows where the key is, and he's opening up the chest. And it was just perfect. And if you can get a location that's close or easy, or you don't have to ask permission for when you're doing a little project like this, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely fantastic, especially if it's a location that is yours at the time that you won't have to worry about in case your short little film gets distribution of some kind in the future and you don't have to pay anyone because, hey, you shot it in your house. Anyway, we don't know what the thief is stealing, but we'll find out soon. He puts it in his pocket, and he's going to close this old chest. I actually loved this old chest. It just was kind of cool. Just like you open it up and find buried treasure in there or something. But I just thought visually it was just kind of neat. I've been doing low budget films and videos like this since I was 18, and I'm 51 now. And I have to say I get just as much of a charge out of it as I did then. It's exciting. Some things are planned, some things aren't. Sometimes you show up at a location and it inspires you. This one, though, was pretty well thought out and written because there's a lot of narration in here to try to get into this guy's head. And then all of a sudden we find him here back at the car, and he is going to take out that box. And we're going to see, what did he just take from this house? What was it that he took? Oh, a necklace. And thankfully, my wife, loaned me her necklace to do this scene. So that's appreciated too. If you have someone who can give you props, then that's just great. And this is something that covers up fingerprints. If you're watching this at the beginning and saying, oh my God, he's a thief, but he's going in there without gloves. He's got to be an idiot. Well, I pretty much covered my bases with this. It shows that this guy pretty much lives a solitary life. He makes money from stealing. He's kind of methodical in what he does, and his addiction is, one of the addictions he has is Coke. Later on he mentions about food. He's not exactly the best eater, and that was perfect for me, physically, for that role. But this here was shot at Freehold Raceway, me coming up the stairs here. Later on, we'll go back to the racetrack. And this I just thought was great, him breaking into, what is this? And this is actually one of the cameras from the racetrack, and then I just made it into black and white and added some dots so it's like a surveillance camera. It's him breaking into an office. This is actually back at the house in Lake Riviera in Brick. As he's going through these files, he has to steal a file for somebody who's hired him. And he is leaving. And he's going back down the stairs at Freehold Racetrack and down the escalator there as well. So again, unless you hear the commentary or unless you've been there, you're really not going to know where these locations are. This is me driving through Farmingdale, actually on the way home from work. This here is back in Lake Riviera. There's a little mailbox shot, our mailbox in the house in Lake Riviera. And he is narrating again, talking about so many little interesting things that go on in his day. We get the sense that he's kind of a lonely person. We know he has lost his wife. We know he is working for somebody, and in this sequence we find out that who he's talking to is somebody who not only hired him, but he's got like one of those disguised voices. They even make a joke later that, who does this guy think he is, the killer from Scream? So we don't know this voice that we hear. We never know who it is. Throughout the entire thing, we don't know who it is or why. We just get the sense that this is someone that's been shortchanged by him in the past, and this guy wants his revenge. And this is our actually wedding pictures as he's flashing back on his wife and how much he misses her. And this scene here is actually shot in Silverton by Patricia's restaurant. At the time, it was a different restaurant actually at the time, and I just remember being out there shooting this scene, holding this umbrella, and being cold. My hands were shivering, so when I cut this scene, I actually had to cut in a little. You can actually see my hands actually shivering there a little bit there, and I actually got a little sick after that whole thing. But sometimes you're just driving along, you see a location and it works. This is a computer room upstairs in my old house, and I'm talking to this guy who hired me, and then at the same time, this guy with the weird modulated voice, at the same time, wants me to get in trouble, wants all his money back. But, my character is smart, double-crossed him. The file I stole, I kept a copy of, and I dismantled the security camera at the place, and I had to also work there, so there wouldn't be any suspicion falling upon me. So I'm thinking now to this guy, you give me 25% because you were going to screw me over, or I'll tell the cops about you. But now here in chapter 2, and this is broken up into 5 chapters, we're hearing that voice once in a while. And we're wondering about it. Like, who is this guy? Again, we're never going to find out. But the lifestyle that this guy leads, this is not very surprising. And here he is talking about being a thief, and this was shot in the kitchen of the old house in Lake Riviera in Bricktown. And I really enjoyed these sequences. It was a way to take this character that we've seen in a million stories before, a thief, and really humanize him. And as the story goes on, you're going to hear his feelings about things and about life. And at the very end, you're going to wonder, is this guy sane or not? Here we are going through Farmingdale again, as he's talking about how dangerous it is and the mindset to break into a house. And here, the sequence here was actually taken from another film called Too Much that I had made earlier, but I love the sequence with a little infrared thing on his head, and you hear the gunshot, and he looks up. And we soon realized that was just a dream. And, it kind of makes you feel the presence of the voice. Man, there is Scott DiPaolo from a film called The Last Semester. And I cut this sequence in. It was a scene that was cut out of the cut of the film, the latest cut of the film, which had been cut 4 times. You can check here on my YouTube channel. You can see that film and its commentary. And it fit in really well as the guy who vetted my clients here. And his name was Frank, as his name was Frank Minetti in The Last Semester. And that had been shot back in 2002, that sequence. So here I am back, and all of a sudden I'm getting a call by the voice guy, and he's telling me that Frank is dead. So now I know this guy is playing for keeps. This is pretty creepy stuff. I don't know what's going to happen, but I also discover that this guy has taken my money. Not all of it, as we'll find out, but a huge chunk of it to make my life very, very difficult. And no one has seen this guy. And the only one who has seen him is Frank, and now he's dead. So my character is kind of totally screwed right now. He's going to realize that he's under the thumb of this mysterious character, and he's going to have no choice but to, jump through some hoops for this guy in order to try to get his money back. And we find out that this was revenge right from the beginning. Again, we don't know exactly what. It will not be explained, and nor was that the point of it, because as the film goes on, here I am in the parking lot by the movie theater at Freehold looking out at the tower. I've been directed to go there by this voice man. And then we find out as we cut back to this scene in Chapter 3, Penance, where he's trying to make up for it, we find out that the voice man never showed up, that he was just totally screwing with him. And he wants his money back. So the voice guy is going to say, you have no choice. Get in the car and do as I say. Over on the left all the way is our little cat, Boo Radley, who will show up again later on, who is a very, very sweet cat and quite photogenic. He always shows up. And so the voice man is telling him, drive up the street, stop at this convenience store. This is 7-Eleven in Brick, right outside Lake Riviera. And he's telling him, go to the sign, walk around there, and then turn around. So my character turns around and he sees something that the audience doesn't see, and that's on purpose. But we hear it, the gunshot, as he ducks, gets back into his car, and drives off. So I did make a conscious choice of what the audience sees and what they don't see. And it's really not on the first viewing that you get all this stuff, but on the second viewing, if you pay attention, you can kind of figure out what's real and what's not. And that's the fun about going back to this. And he's haunted by this guy, but he also tells him, this whole thing, it almost killed me. You know what? Keep the money. Keep the money. And that was actually the neighbor's car outside, but it was kind of freaky because it looked like, the voice man could have been there watching him at any time. And that was the whole point of that sequence. He can't relax. He can't be at ease. He's haunted by what he's done. And he's terrified by this guy, and he doesn't understand it because he's been a thief his whole life. So what is he going to do now? He talks about how bad things happen to people. And there he is. We're petting his cat. And we find out that he has no choice but to sell one of his cars and sell his house. And then the story will continue on. It's a nice little pan up to the sky. And we will see soon, very soon, like right now, 1 year later, as we pan down to the wonderful Monty's Fish Fry and Seafood Market. Was such a great place my wife and I discovered after a while. Actually, it had been there. We finally started going last year, and then sadly they closed. And I'm glad I shot the inside of it because, these videos, these short films, they end up being your memories. And here we are at the Mantoloking Bridge Park in Brick, New Jersey. As we find out, my character moved, lives in a whole different area, more toward the water, less rural. He has some investments, so he has some money. He didn't take it all. He didn't keep it all in the bank. He was no dummy. But he is haunted by this guy, and he still doesn't know why. He's been singled out for revenge. He hasn't heard from the guy, though we do hear the voice once in a while. And again, especially later when you watch it, is this all in his head? Or is this the voice of the guy? He's also talking about how he still misses his wife. He's still grieving his wife. And I love this location here. The Bridge Park here. It's really, really fantastic. Mantoloking Bridge Park is really just a great place, a great location. And if you look, well, actually, he didn't walk up to it. I thought that he did. In one of the cuts he did, you could actually see the original Mantoloking Bridge that is set aside next to the new one. Actually, you could see it right there in the background for 1 second. And he's hearing voices now. And who is that? I set this sequence up, and actually a real-life policeman was walking by. I had no idea what I was doing. And that was one of those happy accidents. So again, we're wondering, is this in the main character's mind or not? Is it his paranoia, or is it really happening? This is the bathroom in there. Well, self-explanatory. He walks in, and we start to hear footsteps outside. And then we hear the voice again. And, oh no. What's that? He turns around. He has to leave the bathroom. Boy, I hope he didn't have to go really bad, because that would suck. And he looks out, and again, we don't see anyone. We just hear the voice. He walks away from there, outside, and there it is in the background, and then he's back to where the guy walked around the corner before. He doesn't see anyone as we move on to chapter 4, which is called Dreams and Memory Lane. I think dreams are very interesting in film and on television. I think the most interesting I had ever seen dream sequences were in the TV show The Sopranos. They seem so real, so scary, so freaky. You can't really describe them. Dreams are just metaphors, associations, and they all come together at night. That there is from a short film called The Return of the Jersey Devil. That was writer-director Ian J. Keeney here, who shot the gun off, and then I wake up in my old house right here, back in Lake Riviera. And again, he starts talking about his life. He starts talking about the commandments, thou shalt not steal, realizing he's done this his whole life, but he's also realizing maybe what he's done is not such a good thing. Maybe it's not so great. And that's how he lived his life until this guy took from him. So in a way, it's kind of poetic justice that this happened. And he's getting on. He's 50 years old, and he's just wondering about his life and things that we all wonder about. And then it's time for lunch here, which is always nice. And this truck was off Route 88 in Brick, and it's got these great cupcakes. And I threw this little sequence in here because it was also time for me to eat lunch, but I threw it in well with the character and about to break the fourth wall again. This is actually in the parking lot outside the At Home store, and now in the same plaza is a place called Levati's, where Path Market closed about 7 years ago. So it's good to see that plaza back in Brick open with people going to it like they did years ago. It just was like a dead plaza for a number of years. This church here is in Farmingdale, and our main character describes that's where him and his wife got married and where his father was buried. Here I am driving through Farmingdale down this road that I love that's on the way to work at Freehold Racetrack. A lot of these locations I have seen. I've driven past them for years. That building is kind of new. And here he is talking about his life. This is where he lived. And then he makes the comment that it's sad to think about the past, something along those lines. And this is where he grew up, because it almost seems like a story that you heard. It seems so long ago. And the fact that all this is going to be condominiums now, and that just pretty much shows how life changes. He talks about the fact that now that he's doing some odd jobs, and one of them is camera work at the racetrack, which I've been doing for years at this racetrack. 3 years at the Meadowlands, 17 years at Freehold Racetrack. Now I've been doing graphics. So I thought it was great to show that, he's still trying to make some money on the side and odd jobs, a connection to his dad. And this is actually the walking out of the elevator there and down the stairs back to Freehold Racetrack, which is cool because we showed these stairs earlier. I show them in a different way. And if you watch the movie a second time, you realize, wait a minute, the track, maybe he was out there the whole time. And I think you pretty much come to the conclusion that a lot of these things that you're seeing and that he's thinking about are real, and a lot of them are imagined, which, what does it say about this guy himself? And there's this whole sequence when he's at the Marquee Theater off Route 37 in Toms River talking about movies and how great they are and how they're an escape, but then you have to eventually go back to reality. And in a way, that could be kind of foreshadowing. He reflects upon the 7-Eleven he was at a year ago where he was almost shot to death. And he's thinking about his wife. Now, this scene here is shot from the gazebo and shot in the gazebo of our old house in Brick in Lake Riviera. And there's the Coke again. This movie ever got distribution, I think Coke would owe me some money because I'm certainly plugging their wonderful soft drink. Wonder if anyone calls it soft drink anymore, or does that just date me, that phrase? Well, either way, here we are, and he's thinking about his wife. And you're actually going to see some real wedding pictures. We had a lovely wedding in Cape May, and It's one of our favorite places. And here he is just thinking about her and the fact that she is gone. But as we move up to the last chapter, which is called Two Last Shots, things start to unravel. He opens his trunk after we hear the voice telling him to go in there. And what does he find? But that box we saw at the beginning and that had the necklace in it. Now, why is he finding that box? Why is it there? Shouldn't he have sent that to somebody? I mean, wasn't that part of it? What's going on? That should start to lead you to think, what's wrong with this guy? And there is Boo Radley, the cat, laying down, and there's the box, and he is going to open up the box right now. And this is Boo, such a natural actor. He's got to react to everything. I guess he's more a reactor than an actor, but either way, he's very natural. He's a good cat. He's not a method cat. You know, he learns his lines, and there you go. And it says, stealing your life away, which was mentioned in the graveyard. My wife always said I was stealing my life away. And then you hear the voice man say, your wife is not dead. She's alive. And then you start to wonder, what the heck is going on here? Like, what do you mean? And we go back to this location that we saw in the dream sequence, which is also the same location in Allaire State Park, though a different part of the location of where he was walking with his wife, the same area. So it's kind of like fragments and memories. And we're not sure exactly, what's going on. He's been acting like his wife is gone. He still has his ring, but is she still alive, and is that possible? And then he finds out that before Frank was killed, he actually had sent him information on the voice man, his actual address. So now my main character is going to want some payback. He is going to go there and get some payback for Frank and get his money back. This is actually my mom's house in the other side of Bricktown at the time. Again, if you can get a house and you know who it is and you don't have to worry about permission or permits, then do it. This is the basement of that house. So here he is saying that he wants to get payback, and he actually finds the rifle that Frank was killed with, and he is going to get some payback. This basement had actually been remodeled before we shot this, and I'm glad, because it was actually a lot nicer to shoot than the way the basement had looked before. And, what's going on right now? So there's a good degree of suspense, if I've done it right. And he's wondering, where is this guy? What does he look like? Again, we don't know why he's doing this. We haven't seen him. And I was shooting this by myself. So this whole shot here, you just keep the camera in one place, and then I walked around and opened the door up and just cut it in. So it all looks like it's one shot. And boom, looked like a rifle was sticking out or something, or some kind of gun to shoot him, and he turned and shot that person. But we don't see the body. So what is that about? But this isn't over yet. So he's going upstairs to look for the voice man. And as he turns the corner, we hear the voice man begging him not to kill him, telling him that the money is in the closet behind him, and he doesn't care. He shoots the voice man. Boom. And it says a woman above there, which is kind of leaving up to you what happened. And he says, is this whole thing real or imagined? Or am I just stealing my life away? And I think that, to me, he is stealing his whole life away. Again, you can go back and watch this film and decide what's real and what's not. But I think this guy has unraveled. And I think it's interestingly done and worth a visit. And thank you for listening to this commentary. I appreciate it. Take care, have a great day, and it's great to shoot in Jersey.